Hey there, welcome to the Intentional Academy podcast, where we believe that life is best when it is lived on purpose. If you want help finding time for what matters most, launching your dream career, and building a prosperous future, then you should visit us at intentionalacademy.com. I'm your host, Tony Farrar, joined by your co-host, Justin Thomas, and we are thrilled that you are tuning in today. Hey there, Justin.
Hey, Tony, how's it going?
Doing great, buddy. Today we are answering a question from one of our listeners about how many hours you should study for a final exam. But before we get to that, you need to know this episode is sponsored by our free guide, the Ultimate Career Builder Starter Kit. Listen, we understand how hopeless it feels to hear no response after spending hours filling out online application after online application. So, we created a system that helps you build your image, connect with potential employers, and land a job you love in as short a time as possible. Stop wasting days applying to jobs you don't think you'll want anyhow, and build the confidence you need to network your way into your dream job. Head over to the show notes for today's episode at intentionalacademy.com/6 to claim your free copy today. intentionalacademy.com/6.
Okay, Tony, so this is a question I'm sure you get a lot. How much time should someone spend studying for a final exam?
Oh, man, that's a great question, and I think that there's the implication that there's a math involved here that says if you spend more time, you're definitely going to do better.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure that's true.
It's probably more like, how long are you willing to study for the exam? How much time do you even have available?
A and then how do you put it to best use? Because I don't know very many students who are only taking one class, and so you've got to balance the load from a bunch of different places. And man, I totally get it. This is a big challenge because, of course, final exam week means all of your exams are coming at once, and that's a really stressful time. And there's so much on the line because, this is usually the biggest portion of your grade all semester. And so I totally get why people are freaked out about it and are trying to find an answer to something like this.
Yeah, but unfortunately, even as engineers, there isn't a discrete answer to this question, but hopefully we can make things a little clearer to help you as a student understand how to spend your time and how the best way to spend your time.
Because what we don't want anybody to do is feel guilt, right? You come out of an exam, and if what you think is, doggone it, if I had just spent a little bit more time studying, I would have done better. Right? We don't want to feel that way. And it's even worse nowadays. Like, everybody just got thrown into this weird distance learning thing. Nobody was prepared to teach it that way. Nobody was prepared to learn it that way. And so we're all kind of trying to figure out how to do this. And I definitely know some students who are hoping to improve their grade by just rocking the final, like some sort of last-ditch effort to, boost things. Unfortunately, I don't really see that happening most semesters. Every semester. So this isn't a thing that's just during lockdown. People get this idea that they can suddenly conjure up expertise in the last week. And I'm not trying to tell people like, despair, it's too late for you, you're screwed. But there's a reason that semesters are 15 weeks long and not one, right? And so if you find yourself in that situation, maybe it's time to rethink things. Long term, I hope you'll stick with us because you don't have to feel this way. College can be fun, and you can have lots of free time and enjoy your life, and you can crush your classes. If you're in there, you're already smart enough to do this, and we just need to get you a good strategy. In the short term, though, whether you feel like this is a last-ditch effort or not, I think there's a couple ideas that we could toss out that would really help people wrap their head around getting ready for exams and deciding how much time they should spend on each of their classes.
That's what we want. That's what we want to do. We're not hoping that a few people do well. We're hoping that everyone does well. So, I mean, this is a big investment, time and money. So,
that pulls me off. That pulls me off topic, but in a way that I think maybe we need to talk about for just a second. I think curving grades is horrible.
Yeah, I can see that.
In both ways, right? I think that faculty should definitely use their grade distribution to measure how effective they were at teaching. I don't think very many people do that, right? If there's a low average on your exam, the problem isn't your students.
Yes, I agree. If it's a completely across the board average that's low, then yeah.
The problem is if your response to that is, let me curve the grades, what you teach the students is, stop trying hard, he's going to boost us anyway. And now the motivation is chase points instead of learn material.
Exactly. And then you have the one person that always gets looked at, shot across the movie, the curve buster. Oh, he's the one that messed up our curve. Like, no, you messed up your own curve.
But I think there's even more nefarious thing, and that is that I'm sure there are faculty who curve the other way. If the average is too high, they feel like they should push it down. And I just say, shame, shame.
Both are a direct reflection of the exam that was made by that professor. Not wrong, not right, but should be used as a measurement of what they need to do to tailor their exam for the next time. I mean, it should be constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't be just pulling copy C from year 2012 and that's this year's one. Haha, hope they don't have a copy of this one. Like,
point being, faculty, the grades are partly a reflection on you. /rant/ whatever.
It needed to be said.
Yeah. Students, we are on your side. You got this.
You may be a professor, but you're not skewed solely on the professor side, Like,
there you go. I hope that it's not just the earliness in my career, because I definitely still remember what it was like to be a student. It's not that long ago for me. Anyhow.
Are you sure about that? Oh,
no. Shut up. It's getting longer. It's getting longer.
I know.
I was driving when my students were born.
Yeah, that one. All right, let's keep moving, because that's a reflection of me too.
All right, yeah. Happy birthday, Justin, yesterday.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so if I had one big thing I would say about studying for exams and how much time it takes and that kind of stuff, what I would say is this. There is a difference between learning and studying. And I think it's really important that as you sit down to prep for an exam, you figure out which of those activities needs to happen for each of the topics you're looking at. Learning is figuring out an idea for the first time. If you didn't get it during week 8 and now it's week 15, you got the issue of needing to figure that idea out now. And that's okay. It's just make sure you know that that's the situation. Things that you already kind of grasped for the first time and you've already wrestled through internalizing it, now you're studying. Studying is this idea of just bringing to mind concepts that you understood and you grasped, but maybe you need to bring them back into the front of your brain because it's been a little while since you saw them. And so, we talked last week, episode 5? So if intentionalacademy.com/5, we talked about how to write down learning objectives and use that to build yourself a study guide. And what I would do is I would go do that real quick for the classes that you're looking at and just make a checklist of the topics and ask yourself, is this something I need to learn or is it something I need to study? Because the amount of time you take on each of those is dramatically different.
Exactly. And what you're more than likely juggling anywhere from 4 to 6 classes. So you have to multiply this times that number of classes. And Tony's always given the adage of if it's 3 hours per hour of credit.
Yeah.
So if you have a 3 credit hour class, you're spending 15 hours a week is the assumed workload. So it's something that definitely needs to be juggled for all of your classes.
And when it comes to finals, that's kind of compounded now because there's this pressure of, using your exam grade to finalize your score and, at least maintain your grade, if not boost it a little bit. You certainly don't want to bring it down, which, by the way, is usually what happened to me. I usually scored a letter grade lower on my final than I did in the rest of the class, and it brought me down by half a grade, and that was a real frustration for me. And I wish I had a buddy like the one that's talking in your ears right now to tell me what we're telling you. If you could separate learning from studying on your list, then it's really a lot simpler to budget your time for this because you can usually study a lot faster than you can learn. And so I would go through and I would tick off all the studying stuff first, review your notes, review your homework assignments, things like that. Bring these ideas into your brain. And then on the ones that still need learning, now's the chance to probably just stop and ask for help. Ask a buddy, ask your professor, find somebody who can support you, because if it's a concept you didn't figure out yet, now's your chance, right? But we want to maybe save that for second,
Mhm.
because if you're going to run out of time, don't miss out on refreshing the concepts that you did grasp in hopes that you might figure one out now.
The information that you're receiving throughout the semester is usually very broad and complex, and it would be very difficult to try to learn that. If everyone could learn that in the few hours prior to an exam, then it's almost like the entire semester doesn't matter. So that's a lot of work to push off until a few hours before this major measurement of your understanding the material.
So we teach a strategy called time budgeting. We went over that in a bit more detail in episode 2, intentionalacademy.com/2, if you'd like to hear about that. Time budgeting. Basically what it is we teach people to start by deciding how long things get and then stopping. And so now that you are in this situation where you have 2 different activities need to happen, learning and studying, and those 2 activities need to happen for however many classes you're taking, you can start doing the math on how many hours you have in your day that you can give this, and then start allocating how many go to each class and how much of that time should be spent studying versus learning. And even there, I'd prioritize, by the way, which topics do you think are the lowest hanging fruit?
Yeah, and what you're going to find is where a lot of times you feel like there's not enough hours in the day. Once you lay everything out on paper and you put it in blocks, you realize there is a ton of time available if you utilize it completely. It's amazing when you sit down and you factor in the amount of time that you're expected to utilize for each credit hour, like we said. You put that on paper, and the one thing you're going to find, and Tony found this out firsthand when he first developed this method, was that you are going to have to learn the power to say no. So I have X amount of time to do this many things. No, I don't have time for another intramural sport. I don't have another group meeting. All of this stuff. I have my obligations, and then whatever time extra I have available is for fun, and then there's only 24 hours in a day. So you're going to have to learn to say no.
This is a season, right? Exams last for a week or 2. Not your entire life, not your entire month, your year, or whatever. It's okay to put things down, press pause. Tell the people in your life, tell the other commitments that you have, it's time to press pause. It's go time for me for a week or 2 for college, and then step back into this.
And honestly, if they're supportive, they should be completely understanding of that. I mean, it's really not, it's not rocket science to know that this is buckle down time. I'm really going to work hard for, the next week or 2. And then, hey, I can, sit back and take a deep breath for a little bit.
I think that's probably, made even more challenging, though, because you're sharing space.
Yeah.
Right? We're all trapped at home right now. And so depending on what your living situation is, it might be really hard to find a private space. And so now you're shopping for buy-in. Hey, other people that live in this one-room house with me, or, at least small quarters. I mean, literally, we're recording this show right now, and the only way to make that happen in my living situation is literally to get my wife to take our 2 loud children who would be destroying our track on a walk.
Mm-hmm. My son is having a bath right now upstairs.
Right, so thank goodness we have supportive cohabitants. But that's the thing. Like, have a conversation with whoever you're sharing your space with, and work this out.
I wanted to touch on one more thing, Tony. Just it came to my mind. You had mentioned, all of a sudden we're cast into a completely different learning environment, and because of this whole stay-at-home situation. And I was thinking about that. If I was a freshman in college and this happened, I know I struggled to study. High school wasn't very difficult, so I didn't have to work very hard, so I didn't learn those methods. And so that first year, if I was at school and I finally started to figure things out, and then all of a sudden I had to change it again, I mean, that's tough. Like, we understand. So we just want to do whatever we can to give you the best advice possible, because we definitely get it.
It's not just, am I smart? Am I working hard? It's about following a good strategy. And I hope that you're kind of picking up on that. When you budget your time ahead of time, when you say, all right, listen, this class deserves this much time, this class deserves that much time, and here's where I'm going to block that out, you give yourself the ability to win in all your classes, as opposed to getting stuck. The worst thing that could happen is you come across a topic you didn't learn the first time. So you're not studying now, you're trying to learn last minute. And it's this one little random nuance, and you go down this rabbit hole for 4 hours that could have been spent or should have been spent studying for a completely different class. And now all of a sudden, that one random piece of trivia from class 1 is causing your grade in class 2 to go down. And that's what we want to avoid here. So when you're budgeting your time, I think it's really important to consider 3 different factors that let you decide how much time you give each of your classes. And it's priority, level of quality required, and your current skill level. And so you can imagine, depending on what your grade already is in some of your classes, that's going to change the priority or the level of quality that you need to achieve on that exam. Or if one exam is worth 30% and another exam is only worth 12, that's another thing to consider and factor in. And then, doing an honest assessment of where you're at. How much of what's on this checklist is learning versus how much of this checklist is actually studying, refreshing things that I came up with. Let's just say this. Do your best to focus on learning the material, and I really want you to give yourself some grace here. Don't let stress mess you up. I have a friend and a colleague who actually studied the effect of stress on learning and education, and what they discovered is that stress releases chemicals in your brain that shut down higher levels of thinking. The more stressed you are, the more physically incapable you are of even learning or retaining information to begin with. You ever have that like deer in the headlights moment? You like freeze because something big is happening outside and you just lock up. That's the most extreme version of that. Right? Where your brain, your amygdala, I think they call it, has literally cut off higher level functions and your body physically responds. That happens to a lower extent just with stress. And if you're sitting there just running through the stakes over and over, oh my God, I got to do well. Oh my God, if I don't get this grade, I'm going to be in this situation, my GPA and my scholarship or my grants. And if I don't pass this class, it's going to make me take long. If you're running through that stuff, you are not helping the situation.
Grades aren't necessarily everything. Are they a measure of how well you learn the material? To an extent. Like Tony talked about how, grades and curves, and there's some of that on the professor as well. So yes, you want to do well. Your grade is your basic reflection of how well you did. But it's not everything. And I want to go back to Tony when he was applying to jobs after he got his doctorate. He omitted his GPA from his resume. And a lot of employers, the first thing they look for is where your GPA, and they like to weed people out. And we have other material with regards of how you can stick out with not just your GPA. We're going to always, we'll get back to all that information in the future, and we've talked about it in the past as well. But he did not put his GPA on there, and he did. The first few people he approached after he got his doctorate, and he handed a resume. He's like, "Oh, where's your GPA?" And he kind of looked at him wrong. I'm like, "I have a doctorate. I had to master this material. It's at least a B, if not an A. What's the point of getting a doctorate if your GPA isn't max?" Like, it kind of boggled the mind. So it's like, your GPA is going to be on my GPA was on my entry resume, and the only thing my GPA did was decide my starting salary, because if your GPA was above a certain number, you got X dollars. If your GPA was below a certain number and they liked you and understood that you were value added, they hired you, but at a lower dollar amount. And then for any job after that, and it's been 12 years now as a professional engineer, my GPA is gone off that. I'm like, I'm not going to put that on there. They don't need to know that. They need to know what I've accomplished as a professional engineer. That's it.
There you go. Although I do have to say, it makes me really angry that they use GPA to decide how much somebody earns too. It's lazy math. It's lazy math. If you can't evaluate somebody's capacity to add value, falling back on a GPA, like, is somebody with a 2.9995 really less effective than somebody with a 3.01? Like, come on.
He said that number on purpose, by the way. I'll just let y'all think about that.
The names have been changed to protect the innocent. So, how many hours should you study for a final exam? I'd say decide based on the priority, the level of quality required, and your current skill level. Beyond that, focus on studying first and learning topics that you missed second.
Yeah, and we just want to also just cement once again that this isn't a game. Yes, you're out for a grade, but where it's more important is the value you're adding to yourself and your career field.
We believe in you. You got this. It's another week or two. Hunker down. Get it done. So tune in next week. We're going to talk about what to do if you have a job or an internship lined up for the summer and they're telling you now that you have to delay your start date in response to things like the corona lockdown. In the meanwhile, I think we all want to land jobs or promotions, and one of the best ways to ensure that it happens is to build a professional image for yourself. We, the Intentional Academy, love to show people how to do that, and you can get started with our free guide, The Ultimate Career Builders Starter Kit. The best way to take charge of your career is to be known as an engaged professional. Start for free by downloading the guide at intentionalacademy.com/6 and using it to make 3 key decisions to get you moving. intentionalacademy.com/6 is in the number of this episode, intentionalacademy.com/6.
We also wanted to stress that we're here to support you. So if you have a question that you'd like us to answer, head over to intentionalacademy.com/podcast and drop us a message. We're constantly looking for ideas for new podcasts. If you found value in this episode, leave us a review on whatever podcast app platform you're using. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. We share bonus episodes with our subscribers that you won't hear about any other way. Lastly, please share this episode with somebody who you think could use it.
All right, that's all for now. Have a great week.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one.